Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having an absolutely fantastic day. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. It's a free and easy way to support the channel. Very big thank you to everyone who has supported the modern investor over the course of the last 9 years. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. You already know the deal. There's always a lot of interesting, fascinating adoption level news. This has been quite a good, interesting last couple of days for the cryptocurrency market. If you've missed any of the last couple of videos, we have had in the last 5 or so days a lot of expectations by a lot of top analysts for the Bitcoin price at this point to go anywhere between 130 and 150,000 US dollars, thus also potentially dragging up the rest of the cryptocurrency market with it. We have received daily some kind of news in some capacity of a company adopting Bitcoin, buying more Bitcoin, investing in Bitcoin, making a Bitcoin treasury. It's actually been on a loop really it's been about, I think, 6 or 7 weeks. But recently, for some reason, we've had a lot more of them. Today in the news, Chinese consumer company called DDC Enterprise, DDC Enterprise, has revealed a new Bitcoin accumulation strategy following the company's positive financial performance in 2024. As part of its strategy, DDC Enterprise is planning on buying 100 Bitcoin as an immediate acquisition. Additionally, it's targeting to accumulate 500 Bitcoin within 6 months and 5,000 Bitcoin within 36 months to its balance sheet. I wish them the best of luck simply because if Bitcoin's price, now hear me out here, if all the analysts, all of them have been correct, and we are on our way to a $500,000 Bitcoin, getting to 5,000 Bitcoin is going to be 5 times more difficult than it currently is. And a part of the confusion that maybe it'll be explained, but probably not. If you missed it anytime last year, back in 2018 and 2019, we, the public, received a lot of news that owning and buying Bitcoin within China was illegal. This is false. The thing that's illegal is using Bitcoin as a form of legal tender or currency or day trading with Bitcoin. Apparently, it's completely legal, as I've been going over since 2021. For people within China and apparently also companies to own Bitcoin. You can have it, but you can't speculate with it like rapid trading back and forth, and you cannot go into a store to say, hey, give me a croissant or something, whatever people are buying these days. Further, the public firm will have a dedicated Bitcoin treasury management team and a crypto native advisory board to oversee the strategy, per the company's press release. The team will make sure that the Bitcoin strategy, they said, is a disciplined and risk-aware accumulation. I assume as a company you have to say stuff like that, especially if you are in certain countries. Yeah, this is daily at this point. And I mentioned before, because we used to have news relatively similar to this years ago, where we would hear that a company was getting into crypto, a company was getting into Bitcoin, and they were making some kind of an acquisition. The interesting part is that if the public hears that there's a company who's buying 100 Bitcoin, it actually barely makes any waves. If they announce 5,000, people may look in their direction. But what a lot of the public is forgetting is that a lot of companies, since for years now, have been buying and they're trying to get to 100 or 1,000 Bitcoin. The issue there is 1,000 times 1,000 is a million. So all these companies keep announcing that they're going to be buying more Bitcoin or going to be accumulating more Bitcoin. That's the difference, the literal difference between 100 and 5,000. There's not enough for all of these companies to get as much as they want, and therefore this is where we mosey on back into the $500,000 Bitcoin price predictions. Yeah, this is another company. I want to say this is number 10 now. As far as I'm keeping track, I forgot most of the names except for like the bigger, richer ones. But yeah, this is going to continue to happen. And it's really weird because it's almost like Michael Saylor kind of predicted it. If you missed that video, he said a couple of weeks ago, companies will have no choice. You will have no choice but to accumulate Bitcoin if you want to stay relevant, if you want your stock price to go up, and if you want to be richer in the future. That's the DDC Enterprise news. And yeah, let's move on. Also making gigantic waves. I think this was really just to get people riled up. It's not that it's not true or that it couldn't happen, but I think a lot of times people do this to get people chattering. WisdomTree. WisdomTree is a company that manages 100 billion US dollars worth of assets. They compared XRP to Bitcoin in their latest report, examining how much XRP needs to grow in order to outpace Bitcoin. WisdomTree argued that XRP is the only altcoin that stands out as a suitable cryptocurrency for a long-term portfolio strategy along with Bitcoin. If you have been here this is a literal tale as old as time, Beauty and the Blockchain. No, this is really this goes way back. A lot of people believe that something similar to this is relatively true. As we've gone on over the years within this space, there's not really much argument to be had in that the three largest assets are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. The way that the world is shaping, and based on the news that we've been getting, it would be obvious that they would then be the top assets. I will tell you in all honesty, I think XRP is grand. I think it's, amazing. However, the idea of it passing by Bitcoin, and hear me out here. You know how daily we keep getting news that companies, corporations, governments are all mining, buying, using Bitcoin? This is why, it is near irrefutable at this point that Bitcoin is the leader. It is the number one coin. However, I think the world is solidifying around a handful of assets. No matter how desperate a lot of people in the market might be to make Solana, Dogecoin, Tron, etc. relevant, or as relevant as the top three coins, I think a lot of the news that we've gotten has kind of spoken for itself. It's abundantly clear that XRP is being adopted, but not in the same way as Bitcoin. I told you all years ago, and I'm glad we've lightly moved away from it. There was a lot of tribalism within this space. XRP can be the only coin that exists. Bitcoin is going to be the only cryptocurrency. There will be no other. If you remember last year, we had news with I think it was Michael Saylor, where he was basically saying something along those. It was when we had applications for the Ethereum ETFs. If you weren't here, Michael Saylor and many other Bitcoin maximalists said there will never, ever be an ETF for any other coin but Bitcoin. 8 days later, Ethereum got one, and he was like, okay, maybe some of the altcoins. I think these coins are going to continue to coexist. How we have the dollar, the euro, the yen, the peso. There will be at least 10 to 15 different cryptocurrencies that are used in mass. That's what I was telling you before when it came to the 72 applications that we have now for crypto ETFs in the US of A. I think we're going to at least see half of them go through. Many of them are for meme coins. If the SEC is completely out of their mind and they allow all of these to go through, thousands of nonsensical coins are going to try and get ETFs. What I think will happen is that we're going to see a lot of the larger coins, the more corporation-y coins, and yes, Bitcoin is also there. Corporations love Bitcoin, as do banks and governments, which is a weird sentence to say after all these years. But I think that these coins will remain at the top. However, the idea of Ethereum becoming the number one coin is like, The idea of XRP becoming the number one coin is like, I think we should all be happy. And I'll say this as someone who has invested across the cryptocurrency space. I think people need to really just learn to be happy even with the third spot. Realistically, after everything that XRP and Ripple have been through the last 9, 8, 7 years, XRP could be number 110 on the list. XRP could be number 5,000 as like a literal ghost coin that people... Wasn't there something called ZERP years ago? Like the fact that it's number... I think if you take away Tether, the fact that XRP is so high up there, that lends credibility to itself. There's nothing wrong when it comes to money, understand. You may have this thing where you keep hearing and seeing people talking about hustle culture and being number one and being alpha. These people are toxic and they're usually insane. There's nothing wrong if your neighbor has $100 million and you have $99 million. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not bad. You're not a failure. You haven't, missed the boat. If you have $20 million, dude, you are still ahead of billions of people on the planet. Same exact way if you have $1 million. If you remember the other video, if you have $980,000, you are not a failure. So I think a lot of these conversations come from the fact that people think that things have to be tournament-like, Colosseum-like in nature. No, it's totally fine. XRP is going to thrive over the years. We are going to see a $15 XRP. We're going to see a $28 XRP. We're also going to see a $150,000 Bitcoin. We're going to see a $2 million Bitcoin. Ethereum at some point will be $10,000. It'll also be $38,000. There was an article floating around where someone was discussing if Dogecoin this cycle would go to $1.25, and I was like, if time holds true and Bitcoin's dominance relative to altcoins falls, as it does usually every 4 years, it's totally possible to get to $1.25 per Dogecoin. But in the article, they were framing it like, we need Dogecoin to hit $15 to go past Bitcoin. And it's like, calm down. It doesn't always have to be a competition. It's literally like, if you are here and the prices are moving up, you're making money. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop thinking that you don't have enough. It's like exhausting. The point is, this entire thing from Wisdom Tree was talking about, if I remember correctly, I think it says that XRP would need to go up 14 times. Okay, I don't know where it is. Maybe I read it somewhere else. The XRP would have to go up 14 times, I believe, in order to become number one against Bitcoin. And it's like, it's fine. It's totally fine. This thing was 1 cent at some point. Like, it's, if you get an XRP at $1 and it goes to $38, dude, you've still made it. So no need to compare. I know that people always compare, but sure, why not? We know that big things are happening with XRP, but they're also happening with Bitcoin. They're also happening with Ether and a bunch of other altcoins behind the scenes. And we will see potentially towards the end of this month and over the course of June exactly which coins end up getting some kind of an ETF. This was, as you might have imagined, very popular news. Very popular news. Very popular news. That's the XRP versus BTC news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in popular news, for those of you who haven't been here for a while, the amount of crypto on cryptocurrency exchanges has been dwindling. Yes, surprise, right? I've been screaming into a microphone on both channels for a good 3 years now. It's been 3 years about how the amount of Bitcoin on crypto exchanges continues to fall lower. We recently had a news story. If you weren't here, there was one day where $1 billion left Coinbase alone. $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Why, you might ask, is this big news in general? Who cares if people are taking money off of crypto exchanges? These are always whales. Yeah, so what happens is that during a bear market, or whenever prices are a lot lower during a cycle, it's usually because whales, put their coins onto a crypto exchange to make it seem as if people are going to sell or have the intention of selling. We've gone over that thousands and thousands of times. What usually ends up always happening is that when the whales and the bulls are ready for prices to go higher, they take their coins off of these exchanges. You know how I've said multiple times, there's X amount of Bitcoin on the exchanges. Got it. But all those coins are not liquid. That's what I mean. There's a weird misconception. If there's 7 million Bitcoin on an exchange, then therefore there's 7 million Bitcoin to buy. No, my friends. That's why the last time we had news that there was I think last time, there was 2 million Bitcoin left on exchanges. I was like, you have to understand, those 2 million are not liquid. They're there by whales and they're there also by retail. There are a lot of people. There are, by guesstimates, 50 million, 100 million, 200 something. Really, the numbers vary wildly depending on which analytical company you look at, who are into Bitcoin. If all these people are into crypto, a lot of people not everyone's brave enough to self-custody. So therefore, you keep it on a crypto exchange. These people have no intention of selling because they're also waiting for Bitcoin to get to $1 million per coin. So what happens is that every single bull run, we get news like this over and over. The craziest one being that $1 billion left just Coinbase alone. The other metrics for Kraken and Gemini were, of course, very high, but it's also like the Coinbase one made the billion. So recently, again, there were a number of very large transfers, specifically coming from Coinbase, that went up to 307 million US dollars worth of Bitcoin. On any given day, there's usually around 25, 35, 80 million dollars worth of Bitcoin leaving these exchanges. Remember how I told you the way that it works is that it can't all happen at once. You would trigger too many price movements and you would also alert us. We are not meant to be in this market, according to rich people. We're not meant to be here. They don't want us here. So you slowly take these coins off of exchanges over the course of multiple months in order to basically lower the supply, be able to gather up coins at a lower price or the price not spiking. And this is just how it goes. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. We are going to continue to see the amount of Bitcoin on crypto exchanges dwindle. collapse, darn near disappear, because we now openly have 10 companies with MicroStrategy, Capital 21, MetaPlanet, and the blockchain group, was it? Being at the forefront, who are all trying to acquire hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. Really, the US government is also still supposed to be accumulating another 800,000 Bitcoin. The problem there is there's roughly around 1 million Bitcoin that's actually liquid. Yeah, that's the Coinbase news. Okie dokie. Let's move on. In popularly unpopular news, I'll say it this way. I often wonder if we all exist on the same planet, the same plane of existence. I've said something like this before. It's not meant to be a joke. You'll know when I'm joking because I'll go ha 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 or something like that. We've been getting a lot of, and this has been called for, a lot of representatives and members of parliament and members of Congress and members of the Senate everyone around the world is calling for some level of cryptocurrency regulations. Apparently, institutions and companies will not and do not feel comfortable in this space until they get like the whole shebang. They want every single bit of regulation that they can possibly have. When it comes to transactions, who can do them, what kind of formalities and paperwork that companies need, who can, you across the board. We don't have to go through everything, but you understand regulation in some form. We had a news story 2 months ago that the European Union, their crypto regulations apparently went into full effect. People twisted the news to make it seem as if that individuals could not have their own crypto accounts. They couldn't have Monero. They darn near couldn't even be in crypto. And then I showed you the news, and the news actually was, if you are a crypto, do you remember this? If you are a cryptocurrency company, you need to keep track of transactions should there be a crime. The other thing that was also spun negatively by people in crypto when it was actually a good thing, is that cryptocurrency companies within the European Union need to have enough money to pay back people who are owed money, i.e., the people thought or wanted. People in crypto are intense. People in crypto said that the European Union was anti-competitive or something like that because people wanted the rule to be that crypto exchanges only needed around 20 to 40% of the assets that they said that they had. The problem is that that's what banks do. Banks don't have all the assets that they say that they have, and they usually inflate their treasury numbers and their asset numbers for whatever the reason might actually be, usually fraud and crime. So the idea has been, when you talk about the crypto exchanges having proof of reserves, remember the whole FTX collapse and everyone was screaming, oh my gosh, what's going on? The idea of proof of reserves is that if Binance says they have 35,000 Bitcoin, we need to be able to look at their charts, like their paperwork, and see on their systems that they actually have 37,000 Bitcoin. Have extra as like collateral. They always need to have like higher. So the news is that on top of everything, cryptocurrency companies, if you claim to have this crypto and you're holding it on behalf of people, you need to have that crypto so that if there is a problem, people get their money back. Surprise, right? How weird. So when this news popped up, a lot of people were also talking negatively, like, I don't understand it. It's like, no, like they're doing this for your protection. Do you remember? Probably not. A couple of years ago, Kevin O'Leary, the guy from Shark Bait, Tooth Tank, whatever the thing was called, got into crypto and he loved it. He was one of the people who was like, crypto's garbage. And out of nowhere, this man was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Do you know why? because he started dealing in DeFi, decentralized finance, back in I mean, like when it first started, there were rug pulls out the hoo-ha. I mean, it was really constantly all the time. There were many platforms, however, of course, that touted themselves as like the place to go. We'll give you a good return. Part of the problem is that these returns on investment were like 18%. 35%, 72% year on year. Now, some of you may go, but what's the problem? The problem is that that's a scam because nothing can give you returns that quick without completely collapsing. So you usually have to take from Paul to give to Steve, to give to John, to give to Mary. That's how those scams usually work. So he got into crypto and absolutely loved it. Talking about DeFi on CNBC, ABC, like you really name it, he loved it. The next day, this man goes on TV. We need regulations. This isn't right. This is one big scam. It's because the protocols that he had his money in completely collapsed and disappeared. So a lot of the calls for DeFi that we get now that you see from crypto exchanges are hopefully and should be completely compliant. Because while it sounds nice to get a guaranteed 18% return on your money, you want to guarantee that A, you're going to get that 18%. And should there be an issue in the system or your money goes poof, that they have some reserve money to be able to give you. The United Kingdom crypto companies will need to collect and report data from every customer trade and transfer beginning the 1st of January 2026. As part of a broader effort to improve crypto tax reporting, this was said by the UK government. You know that we live on a planet where governments want their due. Now listen, this is not me saying that taxes are great and wonderful and da ba 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 da ba da ba da. But it's weird that people live on a planet where you've had this your entire life and people keep getting annoyed when you hear that things are going to happen. So I don't even have an analogy for that. That's basically exactly what it is. It says everything from the user's full name, home address, and tax ID number will need to be collected and reported for every transaction, including the cryptocurrency used and the account moved. You know what's crazy about this? You know what's insane, guys? This is what every other country already requires when you have a bank account. I know, crazy, right? So people online were complaining that this was terrible. And I sit there and I go, did you buy XRP and Ethereum with rocks? Did you walk into Coinbase with a piece of gold and then you like chunked some of it off? No, you did it through your bank account. The bank that already has your name, your home address, and your tax ID number. You know, the life that you've been living for the last 20, 30, 40 years? Yes. So when we got all the news years ago that all these rules and regulations that apply to bank accounts would apply to crypto exchanges in the future, now that we're getting that news, people are bewildered. They don't understand how this terrible, awful thing could be happening that we heard that was going to happen a couple of years ago and it is now happening, and people are just not getting it. Because the problem is, my friends, at some point in the future, there would probably be a mishap on a crypto exchange. Heaven forbid should it happen to you. That's usually the problem. People don't care if it happens to someone else. Oof, okay, I made it. You want these rules and regulations. You want to know that this guy across the country did something wrong and took your money and that you were able to get it back. Because that's what rules and regulations look like. I know we've existed in this space for so long where there haven't been rules and regulations, but no. If you are trusting your crypto to a company, it's one thing to self-custody. If you are giving your coins to Coinbase or any other crypto exchange, and should they have a problem, someone has to be held accountable. That's the point of you custodying it with that company. Yeah, this, of course, made majorly annoyed news. This was all over the place, and a lot of people were really upset and annoyed. But no, like, this is actually for you. Yes, I know. I know. Believe me, I read the news sometimes, and the way that it's framed, I'm like, you know that this will only like help us. Like this is well. I do hope you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting the channel. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.